death is terrifying. It's one thing that we can't escape. We avoid talking about it. We try not to think about it, but it's there. It's waiting for all of us. And then Jesus makes an incredible claim. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. Not, I'll help you deal with death, not, I'll make death easier. But he says, I am the resurrection. He claims power over the very thing that terrifies us. So today we're going to be looking at Jesus' fifth I am statement, and it might be the most crazy claim he's ever made. Jesus, his humanity and love is seen as he weeps for Lazarus. There in John chapter 11, verse 35. So Lazarus dies, and he's the brother of Mary and Martha. And Martha was the one who anointed Jesus' feet there in John chapter 12. And Martha would always invite Jesus over, and she would cook for him. So, physical death came into the world because of sin. And, it wasn't part of God's original plan. So death is not pretty. So word was sent to Jesus that Lazarus was sick. They're in John chapter 11. And when Jesus heard this, he told his disciples that the sickness is not to end in death, but it's for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified. So God will be glorified through this, and he's referring to the resurrection. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister Mary, and even Lazarus, where it says there in verse 5. So you see there's a unique relationship that they had. And this statement is necessary to bring out the contrast between his attitude of love and concern, and you'll see his lack of action. So, Jesus, he waits, and he does this on purpose. He loves them, but he waits when he hears about the news. And he waited 2 days. When someone's on their deathbed, 2 days is a long time to wait to go see someone. So he waited 2 days, and then he headed toward Bethany. So, there was time there, to get to Bethany. So we'll read John chapter 11, verses 11 through 17. Then he said, and after that, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go so that I may awaken him out of sleep. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he will recover. Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he was speaking of literal sleep. So Jesus then said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead. And I'm glad for your sakes that I am not there, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. Therefore Thomas, who's called Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, let us also go so that we may die with him. So let's read 17 too. So when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb for 4 days. So this is 4 days. So notice the details given. And 4 days was mentioned because Jewish belief was that the soul would hover over the body for 3 days, and intending to re-enter, let's say if he wasn't really dead. But when the spirit sees the body to change, really start to decompose, the spirit would leave. So, any sign of a miracle from their thinking was gone, because by day 4, the body starts to decompose and stink, so they need a miracle. So, Bethany, it was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. This was customary. And Martha, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary stayed back at the house. Then Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you'd been here, my brother would not have died. So, Mary and Martha believed in the power that Jesus had, that he could perform a miracle, but they did not consider his power to raise the dead. And we're going to see Jesus' response, but you think about, has anyone been resurrected before this? And there in the Old Testament, there was Elijah. He resurrected the widow's son in 1 Kings. And then Elisha resurrected the son of the Shunammite woman. You remember that when the Shunammite woman had no children. And, for a woman to be barren in those days, was a shame. And she told him that, though your husband is old, you will have a child. And she ended up having a child. Then later on, this child was out working in the field, and something happened, and he died. So she called for Elisha, and Elisha resurrected him. And we also see a dead man coming back to life when his body touches Elisha's bones. That was in Kings 13. And then Jesus resurrects the widow's son in Luke, and Jesus raises Jairus' daughter there in Matthew 9. So they've heard of people being resurrected. So resurrection wasn't new, but what Jesus is claiming is kind of new to them. So let's look at verses 22 to 26. Even now, I know that whatever you ask of God, God will give you. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? So we see, Martha there, she's thinking kind of future, someday. But Jesus is about to make it personal and, even present. So Jesus makes his fifth I am statement. Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. So the resurrection of the dead was a topic of debate between the Pharisees and Sadducees. The Sadducees, they were Sadducee because they didn't believe in the afterlife, but the Pharisees believed in a literal resurrection of the body. So Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And the word resurrection is to come back to life after being dead. And, Jesus is saying everyone who lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? So when you physically die, you will physically die, but you will live eternally. And he said this with in the Greek, with a double negative. It's an ume. It's very emphatic. So when he says you'll never die, he's really saying you'll never, ever, ever, ever die. So it's a powerful eternal security verse. Yeah, you'll die physically, but you'll never, ever, ever, ever die spiritually. So you'll have eternal life. And so Martha says, yes, Lord, I've believed that you're the Christ, the Son of God, even he who comes into the world. So, belief in who Jesus is essential. And, so we see what happens. If you read there in the chapter, Lazarus comes forth. And, there's a contrast here. We have, someone rise from the grave. Lazarus rose from the grave. He's in his old body, and he's still bound by the restraints of his physical body. Whereas when Christ left the grave, he left his grave clothes behind, new glorified body, and that'd be the same with those who believe. We'll live eternally in a new body without restraints, without troubles, without pains. Those pains you have in the morning when you get up, those will be gone. So after death, those who reject Jesus, they'll live eternally in their physical bodies, separated from God forever. Just that part alone sounds miserable. So, so we're seeing Jesus is God. He has the power to resurrect. He has the ability to give eternal life. He has come to give us life here on earth and give us life abundantly here and then eternally with God. So let me show you the pattern that's we've seen with all 5 I am statements so far. He's saying, I am the bread of life. And so Christ is a spiritual food that nourishes the soul like regular food is for the physical body. Jesus is the bread of God that brings eternal life. Then we see, I am the light of the world. Jesus is the bright light in a dark world that brings eternal life to those who believe. So Jesus is a long-awaited Messiah. And we see Jesus saying, I am the door of the sheep. Jesus had the right or authority to lead the people out of Judaism, so out of legalistic religion. And the sheep have to go through him to be saved, to have this eternal life. And then with the I am the good shepherd loves his sheep, knows his sheep. He gives eternal life to his sheep. And then in this one, we see I am the resurrection and the life. A new resurrected body and eternal life with God is waiting for those who believe in Jesus' finished work on the cross. So we see the pattern. Jesus is God. Jesus is the long-awaited Messiah. Jesus is the way to salvation. He gives eternal life. So here's the question. Are you afraid to die? Most people are. Even though if they don't talk about it, even if they push it out of their minds, the fear's there. But Jesus doesn't say, I'll help you cope with death. He says, I am the resurrection and the life. Not future tense, not I will be, but present tense, I am. And the I am is pointing back with Moses, showing when God came before Moses. So it's really just showing Jesus as God. So, right now, today, he's the resurrection, and he makes you a promise. He who believes in me will live even if he dies. And everyone who lives and believes in me will never, ever, ever, ever die. You'll die physically, but you will live eternally. You'll live forever there with Jesus in a new body. You will never, ever, ever die eternally. You'll live forever, but not in your old body with the pain, the limitations, sickness, and decay. You'll have a new body, a glorified body, without restraints, without pain, without the troubles of the fading body. That's not wishful thinking. That's not just a comforting story. That's the claim of the one who proved it by walking out of his own tomb. Jesus didn't just talk about resurrection, he demonstrated it, and he offers it to everyone who believes. So the question isn't, are you afraid to die? The question is, do you believe this to be true? Thanks for watching.